Released by Square Enix in 2011 on the PlayStation Portable and later re-released in HD on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, Final Fantasy Type-0 would take place in the same Fabula Nova Crystallis mythos, but not the same world as the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. The game was directed and co-written by Hajime Tabata, the same director behind Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, Parasite Eve: The Third Birthday, and the upcoming Final Fantasy XV, and reflects his style of character development through struggle and hardships, and fantasy more grounded in reality. The plot itself is more of a war story and the politics entrenched in it, more so than the stories of the small soldiers that fight it. For gameplay, the battle system is real-time combat with the player directly controlling one of the 14 playable characters at a time, with their own individual weapon specialization. At times, there are missions on the overworld map conducted in a real-time strategy fashion to resemble a large-scale battle. For characters, the story spotlights all 14 characters of Class 0 equally, with no true hero, but more plot emphasis revolves around Ace, Machina, and Rem, though the player can grow and use any of them for any mission. The game also features a robust New Game Plus and 2 alternate endings with missions, scenes, and content not available in the first playthrough. Keep in mind this will cover information from a single playthrough, though much deeper plot lines open in replaying the game. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game takes place in the world of Orience, which is divided among 4 great nations, each with a unique crystal conferring special knowledge or power, and guiding that nation's culture and beliefs. Among the larger ones is an existing belief that should the apocalypse, Tempus Finis, arrive, Orience would be saved by a chosen one, called the Agito. The Dominion of Rubrum holds the Vermilionberg Crystal and strong magic. The Milites Empire holds the White Tiger Crystal and technological advancement. The Kingdom of Concordia holds the Azure Dragon Crystal and the power of dragons. The Lorcan Alliance holds the Black Tortoise Crystal and a nation of giant citizens. Despite the countless years of war, the 4 nations have been coexisting under a peace treaty until Cid, the Imperial Marshal for Milites, staged an invasion on their neighboring nation of Rubrum, breaking the peace and sparking another world war. As their main fleet blitzed the border of Rubrum, a smaller fleet equipped with the L'Cie, a person granted immense power by their nation's crystal directly, made a sneak attack on Rubrum's crystal in the heart of its capital, Academia. Despite this, the warships were no match for the magic of the soldiers of Rubrum and their overwhelming Eidolons. However, the L'Cie Kunmi had something ready as she got past Rubrum's defenses and dropped a new device called a Crystal Jammer in the city. Deployed, its effects were instant, severing any power connection to their home crystal and effectively killing magic usage by Rubrum. The Imperial offense now easily overran Dominion defenses, and Marshal Cid then demanded Rubrum's leader, Chancellor Kalia, complete surrender of their crystal to Milites. Amidst the losing battle, a wounded legionary struggles to find a red-cloaked soldier named Ace, and while he and his war chocobo are shot down, he is saved at the last second by Ace himself. It's too late though, as the soldier named Izana delivers his message and perishes with his mount. As Rubrum citizens are being slaughtered, the Eidolon Odin is suddenly summoned, demolishing Milites airships and obliterating their ground troops. In the midst of this sudden turnabout, 12 red-cloaked soldiers suddenly stand to raise the standard of their country and defy the efforts of Milites to deny them the power of the crystal. Revealing themselves to be the legendary Class 0, they repel a strange red cloud collecting the souls of the dead around the city and work to push back the Militesi foothold. The pushback is slow for the Dominion without their staple magic, but Class 0 is able to punch forward to the Crystal Jammer and destroy it, as well as the enemy's flagship. Looking on, a boy named Machina and a girl named Rem note their magic is returning and return to the front lines as well. Back with Class 0, their new mission is to confront a new bottle of Magitech armor equipped with a portable Crystal Jammer still in the city, and they soon encounter the White Tiger L'Cie Kunmi hindering their way. Machina and Rem try and fail to attack Kunmi at the new jammer, who jumps into the Magitech armor, and Class 0 is hot on her heels. The Red Cloak soldiers are able to hold off the Imperial troops long enough to resummon Odin back to the field, much to the shock and surprise of Kunmi. The atomic edge of Odin's Zantetsuken is easily able to slice through the Magitech White Tiger and its L'Cie pilot, though Kunmi gives one last struggle before she's defeated by Class 0. Quickly receiving word of the restoration of the Vermilionberg Crystal and the fall of their L'Cie, General Bashtar, who was directing the attack, orders a tactical retreat, and Rubrum vows to reclaim their fallen cities and territories. At the time of their declaration to rouse all of Orience into action, an Ultima Bomb, the most devastating armament in the world, was dropped on the Black Tortoise Crystal in Lorica, annihilating the Lorican Alliance off the face of the continent in the blink of an eye. Fearing a second Ultima bomb, the Kingdom of Concordia used its dragons to defend the airspace of itself and Rubrum, making a plea to end hostilities, but this notion was rejected by Rubrum. The Dominion lost a lot of territory to the Empire and was not interested in waging peace before reclaiming them. The Consortium of 8 leading the Dominion discuss their options, and attention gathers on Class 0 as they were unaffected by the Empire's Crystal Jammer. At this time, Arch-Sorceress Horatia, the scientist who created Class 0, comes out explaining that the magic technology used to make them can't be reproduced and the secret behind it is classified. For now, she reports the Crystal Jammer can only be operated by a lessee, so they're out of danger for now. She recommends deploying the cadets themselves to turn the tide of battle, and limited on options, the Council agrees, though add 2 new students to Class 0. In addition, Class 0 is assigned a new commanding officer, Kurosame, and though Class 0 is initially reluctant to the sudden change, he quickly establishes his authority and informs them that he will be leading them on Dominion missions, and they are to live here on campus in between assignments. He also introduces them to Machina and Rem, the new cadets added to the class. They're also introduced to their energetic logistics officer, Mog, and their timid orderly, Arya. It's then revealed that the Vermilion Bird Crystal removes the memories of the dead from the minds of the living so that they aren't emotionally burdened. Thus, there are only gravestones made for those whose dog tags are even found, since there's no one who will remember the dead. Machina speaks to his dead brother, though seems a little bothered he can't remember him, and also upset the nature of his death and mysterious deployment aren't disclosed to him. As the class awaits deployment, they learn they draw their power from a different source than the Vermilion Bird Crystal, and thus were unaffected by the Crystal Jammer in the previous attack. Soon, the Consortium approves Operation Retaliate, their clawback plan to liberate Dominion territories under Imperial occupation, and progress is initially good. Elsewhere, we see Lord Shuyu, the Vermilion Bird Lessee, who is a powerful warrior of light of the crystal, but one who only obeys the crystal and doesn't defer to the Dominion. We then see behind another closed door Dr. Horatia explaining to the Commandant that Ace asked a scout named Izana to help him in the capital mission, and that's why Izana was out there without official orders even though he ended up dying. Ace overhears this, though he is at a loss for memories, and makes the regretful connection that Izana was Machina's brother. The next day, Kurosame informs them they are to participate in Operation Retaliate alongside Concordian army support, and be a mobile but powerful auxiliary force subjugating the enemy forces from the inside with ghost operations. Their first target is the Togareth Stronghold, a point of strategic importance, and as they push through they also collect Phantoma, the souls of the fallen, in order to power themselves up. They are intercepted by flying Magitek armor adeptly piloted by General Bashar, and facing off with it they fend him off, but it seems he was just buying time. At this time, a Primus Lessee, one who is superior even among Lessee, makes his devastating entrance, and Lord Shuyu of the Dominion rushes in to contest this White Tiger Lessee. The cadets only have a scant amount of time to clear out before the two Lessee meet each other and clash in a magnitude too strong for the battlefield. While Rubrum and Concordia technically won the battle for Togareth, the ensuing clash of the Lessee destroyed the entire city in the likes of a struggle not seen for 500 years. Back in academia, it's revealed Rem is terminally ill, but keeps it a secret from almost everyone, wishing instead to spend her remaining time fighting on the field. Also, as Ace naps, he somehow still remembers Izana, and how they became friends even though he shouldn't have. He recalls how he asked Izana to help him on his first mission and Izana accepted, even though normal protocol wouldn't allow it. As the campaign moves along, the Militesi Empire succeeds in excavating the Black Tortoise Crystal from the ruins of Lorica and placing it under their control. As a result, all remaining territories under the Black Tortoise Crystal are now annexed and occupied by the Imperial forces, as Marshal Cid declares his intent for Milites to become Agito and guide Orients forward. In the Dominion, they're responding to the advents of Imperial aerial mobility, crystal jammers, and anti-magic shield Magitech armor all as grave threats. They have sourced their production to one particular research facility called the Steelworks, and Class 0 is assigned to infiltrate and destroy the prototypes there. However, this facility is right next to Militesi's crystal in their capital, so this solo sabotage mission strikes right at the heart of the Empire. They're helped in by their intel officer Nagi, and they find a new prototype Magitech weapon far stronger than anything before. They succeed in weakening the weapon, but are caught by a fearsome Primus Lessee named Nimbus. He lets them off with a deadly warning, which allows Class 0 the opportunity to pursue finishing off the weapon for good. They walk into Nimbus again, who, like other Lessee around the world, are taking note about the new will of the crystal. He turns to attack Class 0, who barely survived the engagement, were it not for the public declaration of a ceasefire between all nations. Nimbus complies, sparing Class 0, as Queen Andoria of Concordia arrives in Milites invoking the Fabula Pact, which grants a short ceasefire. While the class is housed in a nearby hotel, Commander Kurosame comes in to claim them, explaining Rubrum's Chancellor Kalia is here to talk to Queen Andoria and Marshal Cid for a long-term truce. Machina feels the Empire has an ulterior motive with these talks, but they are passed by Queen Andoria herself, who tells him to calm down. She says his opposition to peace is opposition to the will of the crystals, as she can speak to dragons, and dragons are the manifestation of crystals, so she can indirectly understand what the crystals are thinking. The crystals want balance, and this war upsets that balance. More war, and one treads towards Tempus Finis, though she has seen that Class 0 are the final cogs in this giant machine, and Machina will have a choice to make. After she leaves, the cadets are left to ponder her words, and now begin second-guessing her and the crystal. Machina is then pulled aside by the Commandant, who informs him of more details about the death of his brother Izana. When Class 0 was deployed, it was a top-secret mission and required a special liaison between the cadets and HQ, and Izana was that liaison. What makes this interesting is that Izana was originally assigned a different mission, but was used by Class 0 for this mission instead. The Commandant spins this interpretation as Class 0 and Dr. Aracia essentially sending him to die, which means Izana died at the hands of Class 0. Since Machina and Rem were assigned to Class 0 as secret observers, he offers to have Machina reassigned if he feels this revelation will impact his mission. For the sake of Rem, he offers to stay on this spying mission and promises to become even stronger than Class 0 for the sake of his brother's memory and Rem. Elsewhere, Mog and Orderly Arya are still on duty to support Class 0, and they learn that behind Arya's meek facade is actually too foul-talking and loud-mouthing a person to bear. As they relax in the city, they see some strange agents of Rubrum, Concordia, and Milites, and later they notice a crystal jammer suddenly activate around them. As they suspect a trap, Arya comes bolting in, telling them to run, though she is quickly shot down before them. Imperial troopers now begin assaulting them, calling them the Queen's assassins, and their own communication with Rubrum is cut off. As they escape, they think they were deliberately left in Milites instead of being withdrawn specifically to take the fall for the assassination. Meanwhile, Rem's condition visibly worsens, adding to Machina's mounting frustrations, and the cadets think to steal a train to escape from the city. Throughout the city, they hear that combat has been authorized to resume as the war continues on, and they are soon met by Celestia, the Lessee of Concordia, who strikes down Rem. Machina dives at her in retaliation, though Celestia easily knocks him aside too. When Machina comes to, he's now in an old wooden cabin somewhere and senses something watching from afar. They explain that Deuce stood up to Celestia, diffused any immediate confrontation, and explained their innocence to Celestia. The dragons believed Deuce, and thus so too did Celestia, who then aided Class 0 in safely escaping the Imperial capital. Machina scoffs at them when they say they carried his unconscious body there, instigating that they'll save him but kill his brother. They retort they were just following orders during the Liberation campaign, and Ace steps in, revealing he knew Izana at a deeper level. As tempers flare up between Machina and Class 0, he storms off despite the fact they are still in Militesi territory. Rem tries to calm him down to make peace, but Machina responds he only cares about saving Rem. Class 0 is then left to wonder why their comms are still down despite their equipment working and crystal magic is still present. They also wonder if Machina learned this news of his brother when he stepped aside to talk to the Commandant back in the hotel. The next day, Machina strolls back, now keenly aware of the eyes on him now, and seemingly much more calm than when he left. He says he encountered the White Tiger, but they are interrupted as Deuce reports that the Dominion is finally responding to their comms. They learn that the Augido cadets were accused by Concordia itself for the assassination of their queen, but then afterwards the provisional governments formed an alliance with Milites, placing their crystal under Imperial supervision under the pretext of safety. With the Empire now possessing 3 of Orience's 4 crystals, both Milites and Concordia are now prepared to invade Rubrum in a pincher attack. According to Concordia, the basis of the assassination was because Rubrum must have been unhappy with the terms of the truce. Back at Rubrum, Class 0 faces internal suspicions, as they were asked to report more detail on their mission. Some of the Consortium of 8 see this as an opportunity to discredit Dr. Aracia, but Chancellor Kalia keeps them focused on the impending war on 2 fronts they now face. The Chancellor announces their intent to counter using the Verboten Eidolon, which is Rubrum's own forbidden ultimate summon that demands a high sacrifice to call, but is so powerful it can eliminate an entire battlefront. Normally uncontrollable, the summon is to be called by the Dominion's Lessee, Lady Setna. Afterwards, the Commandant confronts Kurosame and demands he take responsibility for Class 0's predicament. He orders Kurosame, formerly one of the 4 champions of Rubrum, to the battlefield, and says that if he's victorious in the next battle, then he'll pardon Class 0. Kurosame agrees, though they both know he is unfit to perform in the next battle and will likely die. As the Commandant talks with his co-conspirators, he admits he's counting on Kurosame and Class 0 to all fall in the next desperate battle, and thus rob Dr. Aracia of her influence in the Consortium. Although Machina has gone missing again, the class is briefed on the next mission, and Kurosame overviews that Dominion forces will be divided into two to handle the Militesi Concordian invasion. Because things look so bad, even common trainees will be called to the front lines. Class 0 is to join the other cadets and engage Concordia's fleet of dragons using airships alongside their lessee Lord Shuyu. Meanwhile, he will be joining the main Rubrum forces contesting a military border under their other lessee Lady Setsuna. He informs them they will be summoning the Verboten Eidolon there, as because everything depends on this one battle, Rubrum is literally using their last resort. Afterwards, Kurosame states that the Consortium is planning to pin all of the blame on this crisis on Class 0, even though it isn't proven that they are at fault for anything. Despite his normally cold demeanor, Kurosame expresses he's glad Class 0 made it back and believes in them, though shrugs off their concern for him. Later, Rem encounters Lady Setsuna herself, and the lessee senses her feelings, advising her to leave Rubrum if she wants to protect what she holds most dear, and she will have to soon make a major decision. As Class 0 is divided, some are deployed to the Eastern Front to reinforce the battle line in the skies of Judeca aboard the Crimson Wings Air Division, where it is clear they are hopelessly outnumbered by the Cerulean Royal Guard and the thousands of dragons they command. One of their lessee, a giant dragon named Soryu, begins the battle with a massive breath attack that freezes the clouds and airships among them in a floating icy terrain. The dragons take advantage of the confusion and attack the Dominion, initially taking the lead, but the summoning platoons fortunately are able to regroup and conjure Bahamut and Odin in retaliation. The Eidolons alone are enough to repel Concordia's vanguard, but are still no match for the lessee Soryu, as the giant dragon decimates them with its breath weapon. At this time, Lord Shuyu arrives, promptly engaging Soryu and evening the odds in battle, so now the conventional forces can focus on each other. Class 0 is met by Celestia in her Shinryu form to stop them from turning the flow of battle in their favor, and with the aid of a Bahamut Eidolon, they are able to edge out a close victory. Despite the victories earned in the Concordia battle, Rubrum was quickly and discouragingly losing ground in their efforts to hold back the overwhelming Imperial invasion. General Bashtar is overseeing the operation and testing the mood of the new lessee in their ranks, a young man with a familiar cloak named Incognitus. Nearby, the rest of Class 0 is holding the line in the Battle of Big Bridge, buying time and destroying enemy crystal jammers. Kurosame leads the magic adept into feeding their entire essence into Lady Setsuna, so she may succeed in the Verboten Eidolon summon, and leaves one last message for Class 0 of how proud he is of them. As Class 0 is pulling out, their escape is blocked by the old king of Lorica, Gilgamesh, who has miraculously survived the Ultima bomb but lost his memory, and attacks the group in madness. He leaves, however, after he's satisfied with enough battle, and casually leaves, as mysterious as he came. As Kurosame pours the last of his life force into the summoning succeeds and a massive portal blankets the entire enemy force. Suddenly, the colossal Alexander forms itself before the Militesi main force and rains its divine light across its armies and fortresses, obliterating everything it touches. The Eidolon conjured from sacrificing thousands of Dominion soldiers and officers vaporizes the enemy front so fast they don't have the time to consider a counterattack, as even their rear forces are pierced and devastated. Its job done, Alexander dissolves from this world, and what survived of the Militesi invasion force flees back across their border. Of them, Incognitus and General Bashtar yet live thanks to Incognitus' shield, though they must now live accepting this great defeat. Lady Setsuna looks back and sees Kurosame and the other sacrifices dead behind her, as her focus is completed and she crystallizes over per the will of the crystal. With Milites utterly defeated in the west and Concordia losing in the east, Concordia then pulls back, meaning Rubrum has won the battle, though at a great cost. After the battle, the class visits the grave of Kurosame, and while they know he was their commanding officer, the will of the crystal wiped their memory of him already, so they don't feel anything for his loss. Moving on, seizing the opportunity of the crippled state of Concordia and Milites, strikes are quickly ordered against both of their capital cities. Class 0 is briefed that due to the elite uniqueness of their class, they will not be assigned a new commanding officer, and instead Mog will relay their mission briefings. Machina also returns, but is noticeably more distant than normal to everyone, including Rem. Despite Concordia's attempts at resistance, they surrendered while under Dominion siege quickly, thus the Vermilion Bird claimed victory over the Azure Dragon. With only the White Peristilium left, the unification of Orients now favors the Dominion of Rubrum. Over in Milites, we see General Bashtar speaking to the orderly Arya, who survived her gunshot wound, and asking if she wants to return to the Dominion as their force is near. However, Arya is now inspired to follow behind Bashtar as his minion, despite his objections, so she stays behind. Despite how bad things look for the Empire, Bashtar has the loyalty of his troops who cheer him on and beg him to survive. The final battle draws near as Class 0 is part of the capital invasion force, though they are met by General Bashtar once more. As he is defeated, he learns that his matchstick armor has been booby-trapped by a defeatist within Milites and is rigged to explode with a mini Ultima Bomb. Knowing this would take out Milites too, Bashtar sacrifices himself to fly upwards in the atmosphere and allow the bomb to detonate safely outside the city, though it catches him in the blast too. With General Bashtar gone and the battle lost, Milites loses and surrenders his crystal to Rubrum, though Marshal Cid is nowhere to be found and Rem's condition worsens to where she falls unconscious. Unfortunately, Rubrum's celebration of victory and a new appreciation of Class 0 is short-lived. One day, the sky suddenly turns blood red and the ocean pitch black. A mysterious temple rises from the sea and creatures called the Ursus now run amok, killing everyone in sight. To make matters worse, all of Academia's division heads are gone, as two of the l'Cie, Lord Shuyu and Machina. In the middle of this, traitorous insiders expose all of Class 0's classified operations, and surviving cadets now blame Class 0 for the Minion's downfall. Also, Rem's condition is terminal, and she still hasn't woken up from collapsing. With some encouraging from the eternal optimist Jack, they stay focused on doing something rather than wallowing despair, and Dr. Rachia comes in, explaining for the first time in their lives, Class 0 will have to choose their way of living for themselves. She mentions the Akashic records, which are written records of the will of the crystals, by which all of them have simply been living day to day in accordance to their orders. However, she leaves it to them to write the final blank page for themselves. Nagi, their intel operator, comes in explaining the consortium is still missing, but since they have memory of them, they must still be alive. He explains to them efforts to fight the Ursus fail, and the Ursus seem to be able to destroy Phantoma and living people, inflicting wounds that are unable to be healed. He then mentions Marshal Cid was seen entering the temple the Ursus came from. It then occurs to the cadets that these events parallel an old myth in which the Agito will be chosen during Tempus Finis, and perhaps Cid went there to try to become Agito. Queen elaborates that in that temple, called Pandemonium, lies a judge waiting to deliver the final judgment for the world, and the Ursus will destroy the world if there is no Agito present. They each put forth their opinions on what to do and if they want to go to Pandemonium, but it's pointed out that if someone who isn't Agito appears before the judge, then they lose their life. Normally, Class 0 can beat the odds and be revived post-battle thanks to Dr. Rachia's sorcery, but now she has gone missing too, so there will be no second chances for any of them. So their choices are to go to Pandemonium and very likely die, or stay in Rubrum and definitely die. With those options, trying to survive seems a better choice. At this time, Celestia appears before them, announcing Cid has gained the power of the temple, and if they want to go to Pandemonium, she can take them there, as normally only l'Cie are allowed to set foot in Pandemonium. She explains she's helping them because she chooses to believe in Queen Andoria, who could see the future, knew of her death, and asked Celestia to do this, even though it was against the will of the crystal. As punishment, Celestia is turned into a seethed monster. As they enter the temple, they are greeted by Cid, who explains he is the judge, and they will be subject to his trials to determine worthiness of becoming Agito. As they battle Ursus, they seem to only be killed when their Phantoma is taken, which is an ability unique to Class 0, as it's also the source of their power, not the crystal, hence why they're not subject to lose their power when connection to the Vermilionberg crystal is cut off. In fact, the Vermilionberg crystal now asks them if they want to become l'Cie, since it has no more l'Cie of its own anymore. However, Class 0 chooses to stay human and declines the offer, though unknown to them, the crystal then asks Rem, who accepts and becomes the new Vermilionberg l'Cie. As they continue to pass even more grueling trials, Cid eventually fails them in a task, and all of Class 0 is struck down. At the same time, Rem now appears in Pandemonium and confronts the White Tiger l'Cie Incognitus, who is also there, and explains that her crystal wants her to be the Agito, like the White Tiger crystal wants him to be. As they draw weapons and clash, during the fight, Incognitus' mask falls and reveals his true identity to be Machina. However, mid-attack, Rem is impaled on his rapier and falls. Ironically, in Machina's pursuit of power to protect Rem, it was his power that killed her, and she asks him to remember her after she dies. He recalls that when he stormed off from the group during the escape from Milites, he encountered a dying Kunmi, and feeling this meeting was the will of the crystal, she asked him to take on her focus and become White Tiger l'Cie. Machina, who was starved for power, especially to protect Rem, accepted this opportunity and willingly chose to become a l'Cie, even though it tragically put him at odds with the eventual Vermilionberg l'Cie, Rem. After some time passes, Class 0 somehow gets up, limping and severely injured. They pass by a crystal formation and are shocked to see Machina and Rem within, learning of their tragic duel and completion of their focuses. As they slowly move forward, Judge Cid deems them all useless and assumes an ascended form. Celestia moves in to try to attack him, but in one fell swing he stops her and steals her Phantoma, killing her. He continues his reaping, crushing every member of Class 0 one by one and taking each of their Phantoma. Powerless, Class 0 is left to die, but the crystallized form of Machina and Rem share their soul with each member, allowing them to now rise up like the mighty phoenix they swore fealty to. Now stronger than before, each of the 12 members of Class 0 overwhelm Judge Sid, taking turns to rip apart pieces of Phantoma from him before Sid retaliates and strikes them down again. Working together, Class 0 defeats the Judge, halting Tempest, Phineas, and the end of the world, despite there not being any recognized Agito. Victorious but deathly exhausted, they take a break now, and elsewhere, Dr. Horatia shows up before the crystals of Rem and Machina, listening to the feats of Class 0 and asking Machina and Rem to remember them as she releases them from Crystal State. As the game ends, Class 0 wakes up, finding themselves back in their ruined classroom, victorious in the war but now still dying, and contemplating the new feelings of fear and pain of death they have never personally experienced before. Congregating, they comfort each other in their sadness, and cheer up a little by realizing they're finally now free to think about a future for themselves. As they share dreams of a post-war future and happier times, they laugh off their pain as their wounds catch up to them and the 12 unsung heroes of Class 0 are discovered peacefully dead by a restored Machina and Rem. As they can remember Class 0, this proves the world is already changing from one in which the crystals wipe away all memory of the dead, and now post-war Orients now endures a new dark age without crystals. Soon taking charge, Machina would be the new leader of the people, marrying Rem and living a long life after helping build a new world. While a second playthrough of the game reveals many more additional scenes that add context and reasons why certain events happen to certain people, and the much larger plot behind Orients with Dr. Horatia, it turns out this world was but one of many iterations of a repeating cycle with many of the same people, thus leading to different endings for the game reflecting different alternate timelines. Final Fantasy Type-0 has enjoyed the success of selling over 2 million copies worldwide.